Through the looking glass, Sarah Bennett had always dreamed of escaping the city. The constant hum of traffic, the crowds of people, and the never-ending noise had drained her spirit. So when she inherited her late aunt's Victorian house in the coastal town of New Haven, she jumped at the chance for solitude and inspiration. With hopes of finishing her long-stalled novel, Sarah moved into the ramshackle house. A charming relic, but one that was very much in need of repair. At first, it felt like the perfect escape. The view from the attic window, the creaky floors, and the ocean breeze were exactly what she needed. But it didn't take long for Sarah to feel like something wasn't right. It started with small things. A faint tapping on her window late at night, the unsettling sensation of being watched, the strange creak of floorboards behind her when she was alone in the house. She tried to convince herself it was the house settling, or perhaps her mind playing tricks on her. But then she began to find notes. Little scraps of paper, folded neatly and left in random places, beneath the floorboards, inside the pages of her aunt's old books, behind the mirrors. Each note contained nothing but a single sentence. "I know you're here." At first, Sarah thought someone was playing a prank on her, but as the days passed, the feeling grew more intense, more real. Whoever was behind the notes seemed to know things about her, things she hadn't told anyone. And the most disturbing part? They always knew where she was, what she was doing, as if someone were shadowing her every move. The breakthrough came when she discovered a hidden drawer in her aunt's desk, filled with yellowed papers, photographs, and a series of cryptic diary entries. The writings were strange, almost prophetic, and often referenced something lurking in the house. Her aunt had clearly been investigating something, or someone. One of the entries stood out. "I can hear the footsteps at night, but I can't find the door." Sarah was immediately drawn to the idea that something or someone was hidden within the walls of the house. But what? And why had her aunt been so obsessed with it? Her investigation led her to Finn Carter, the town's reclusive historian. He had lived in New Haven all his life and knew more about the house and her aunt than he was willing to admit. He was an odd man, quiet and eccentric, with a sorrowful air that made Sarah suspect there was more to his past than he was letting on. When she approached him for help, Finn hesitated but eventually agreed, though he warned her to be careful. "Some things are better left buried," he said in his gravelly voice, his eyes flickering with unease. Despite his warnings, Sarah pressed on. She started researching her aunt's past, digging into the history of the house. One photograph caught her eye. It was a black-and-white picture of a group of people standing in front of the house, people who, according to the date on the back, had lived there decades ago. Among them was a woman who looked strikingly similar to Sarah. She knew, logically, that it couldn't be her, but the resemblance was uncanny. The more she uncovered, the stranger things became. She began to notice that her aunt had drawn a series of diagrams, each one depicting the house in slight variations, with extra doors, windows, and passages that didn't exist in the real world. It was as though her aunt was seeing something that no one else could. Then the tapping started again, louder this time, more urgent. One evening, after she'd finished reading one of her aunt's last diary entries, Sarah heard the sound of footsteps behind her. She whirled around, but no one was there. The next morning, she found another note, this time tucked beneath the door of her bedroom. "You should have left when you had the chance." Terrified, Sarah knew she had to find out who was behind the strange occurrences before it was too late. Was it simply someone playing games? Or was something much darker at play? Her investigation led her to a man named James Riley, a local recluse who claimed to have known her aunt. He was the first person who seemed to offer any real answers. According to James, Sarah's aunt had been convinced that the house was alive, possessed by something from its past. James hinted that it wasn't just the house that was haunted, but something connected to her family's history. One night, Sarah decided to confront the person she suspected was behind the notes. She had no idea what she was walking into, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized the answers had to lie within the house itself. She ventured into the attic, flashlight in hand, her heart pounding in her chest. And that's when she found it, a hidden door wedged between two walls that had never been there before. When she opened the door, she discovered the truth behind her family's dark past. a hidden room that had been sealed off for decades. Inside, a dusty journal detailed the horrifying story of a family member who had been lost to time. A woman who had mysteriously disappeared under strange circumstances, her identity erased from the town's history. But there was more. The journal spoke of a cursed legacy, one that had passed down through the generations. And then, in a chilling moment, she realized that the woman in the photograph, the one who looked so much like her, wasn't just an ancestor. She was a version of herself from the past. The watcher who had been following Sarah was a relative she never knew existed, someone long thought to be dead, but very much alive. They had been watching her to make sure she didn't uncover the family secret, because if she did, the curse would awaken once more. In a tense confrontation, Sarah came face to face with the watcher, who explained everything. It wasn't just about her aunt or the house. It was about the bloodline, the dangerous knowledge passed down through generations. Her aunt had been trying to protect Sarah, trying to keep the curse from repeating. But now, Sarah had a choice: embrace the family legacy, or break the cycle once and for all. The resolution left Sarah with more than just the answer to the mystery. She found the courage to leave the town behind, but not without a lingering sense of unease. The watcher had been dealt with, but the knowledge of her family's past and the dark forces it had unleashed would stay with her forever. As she drove away from New Haven, she caught a glimpse of someone watching her from the trees, their figure barely visible through the mist. The story ended with one final note, slipped under the windshield wiper of her car. You can't escape what's inside you.